So the cost of speaking the truth. That's kind of what we're looking at just now. That's what you're saying. So yeah. So if the cost's too high,
I don't know. That's the fundamental question, because sometimes the price for speaking the truth can be really, really high, and it's not as easy as just say, yes, in an ideal world, I would really love to be able to always speak my truth. But the problem is that sometimes it can get you in such a pile of trouble that. So that's really, really problematic. And that's one of the things that Jordan Peterson is trying to promote. Always tell the truth. And in an ideal world, yes, it sounds like a phenomenal idea. And it would, at least when you speak the truth, your integrity is intact. And you can be proud with yourself, for what you're saying. But the consequences of always telling the truth can be really damaging.
So let's break it down then. So the cost, let's break the cost down. So there's the cost to you, yeah? So immediate cost, so consequences. Marius, did you break that? If you're like some authorities, like, so you've got immediate cost, and it's sort of like, yeah, if you're going to go to jail, that's a sort of longer term cost. You've got other costs. So it's cost to your freedom, cost your liberty, cost your identity, your reputation, all these costs. There's cost to your insides. So those are costs to your outsides, cost to your insides, so who you are. So the cost of not telling your truth can sometimes be quite high. Like you get people who, we are all like that. Sometimes it's like, it costs us, it damages us inside not to say, to hold our tongues. But why? So why do we do that? Well, maybe we're balancing it with the cost to the other person. So we don't want to, if we don't want to hurt them, offend them, we don't want to break them. And so maybe we hold back on saying that. It's like, does my bum look big? Unless your wife says, and you say, no, your bum just looks big. It's like, that's probably a really bad one. We'll probably edit that out. But either way, the point is, there's things you could say which they don't bring about anything good. I think
white lies. Are you talking about white lies? I think this is one of the things we would need to define, because when we're talking about speaking the truth, always tell the truth. I think that what Peterson is trying to tell us is that if you strongly believe that something of really important value is happening and nobody's talking about it and everyone is, just keeping quiet, I think that perhaps in a moment like that, it's extremely important for you to tell and to speak to others about these concerns. The problem is there are so many issues that we have in this world just now, especially here in the UK. It's just stuff that we're not allowed to talk about. It's because of the legislation, because of, a fear of hurting somebody else's feelings. And it feels like these days you cannot hurt anybody's feelings. It feels like we're so fragile that we have to be really, really careful at self-censoring ourselves. And I think this is a horrible, horrible state of affairs. I think that honesty will definitely lead to some sort of progress. Sometimes the stuff that we're not talking about every single day, and we're talking about important stuff. We know, and most of us in our minds knows that this is important, something should be done about it, but you know what? I'm going to leave it to that guy to do it, because I'm not willing to take that risk. I don't want to take a heat for speaking the truth. And I think that there are certain subjects when a majority of a population, society, think a certain way, but everything in the mainstream would present it as an opposite. And I think that long term, it is going to be really damaging for us internally because one certain, ideas are being presented and then ultimately written into law, that's when the problem starts. And that's a scary thought that not many people talk about or consider.
Well, it is scary because it's so big and a lot of it's way out with us, like out with our control. So what is within your control? You're within your control. So us as individuals, how does that work? How does it work for you when you hold your tongue? How does that affect you? Has that changed over time? Like, what are the costs? You can elaborate, I can elaborate.
Yeah, well, for me, as I grow older, it hurts way more not to tell the truth. Because it's all about integrity. If you have a certain, if you follow certain rules in your life, like telling the truth, for instance, but you know that because of the world that we live in, you have to hold your tongue all the time, is that when you're younger, it is what it is. But as you grow older, I feel that, yes, you realize, you understand that this is the way it is, but there's a cost to it. And the cost is so, so high. Because for me, I'm not going to tell the person something, but I'll keep it inside. And then I'll phone you, for instance, and I will tell you all about what I think about, how upset I am. But I didn't say that to that person at the time. Maybe that truth would have helped the person to recognize the problems in their life or, help them to understand certain holes in their hypothesis about whatever. But because you were overly afraid they're going to hurt that person's feelings, you compromise your integrity. But then ultimately I phone you and I tell you how upset I am because of all this. And it's killing me inside, as I grow older. I want to be more open, but the society that we live in today, they're not going to reward you for being open and honest. And I think that I don't have a solution. And I wish there was one. I wish that there was a path that we could all take to be able to speak more freely about what we think and what we feel without worrying that, we're going to hurt somebody else's feelings. I've got my feelings too. If somebody hurts my feelings, I'll be fine with it. It's like, I'm not fragile. We just have to toughen up a little. And I think that's the part of the problem. We're very weak as a society from that angle.
Mm-hmm. So, no, that's interesting. Yeah, I think for me, I've gone from being somebody who bends over backwards not to offend people and not to say anything offensive or that could hurt them, into somebody who is much more likely to. So why? It's not that I want to hurt them, it's that I've come to an appreciation through looking at other people. So I'll give examples. Some of my friends that I've come across, particularly people from other countries. So Holland, Germany, Poland, South Africa. Often these have been people who, they're gonna speak their truth. They've got that sort of honesty that could very easily and often I think does get perceived as rude. Because by and large in this culture people aren't really doing that so much, and so for them it's been interesting to observe that they've kind of changed over to a bit more like how I was and kind of limiting themselves more and policing themselves, and I've gone the other way and I'm trying to be a bit more like them, and I guess that's natural and it's course correction. You're because when we do zoom out and look at look at society and the things that cause us to correct or police our offence. I think very much it's been your culture dictates that. It's like, are you going to be punished for saying these things? And a lot of these people who are quite outspoken are slightly punished, and sooner or later they kind of pick up on that. Punished as in soft punishment, like socially, like.
Of course,
people tell you when they're a bit offended, maybe, or maybe they don't tell you. Maybe that's the worst thing, is they just kind of like don't hang about, and it's like, speak to somebody else about it. And I think that's natural, and it's the more softer, natural end. I think what you're talking about, political correctness, where you impose that but from law and rules, and impose that new structure in society, it could be, there's something potentially quite unhealthy about that, and restrictive and unfree.
Damaging.
Is damaging, yeah. And I think probably a lot of people would, I think we all live in this society, and so everybody's experiencing that a bit. And so what are the potential costs of that for society? This is funny because I kind of changed you and went, well, society's so big, it's the personal, and now I've zoomed out from the personal, I'm looking at society. But anyway, what are the costs of that to society? I don't know, but they don't feel nice. To me, personally, they don't feel that nice. It doesn't feel nice to be boxed in, pushed down, not able to speak your truth. And, like, what is truth? I guess when it's to define our term, what I'm speaking about when I say truth, it's the thing that it's my truth. It's my truth. Like, yes, do I believe in objective truth? I do, but that's something else. So for this conversation, it's my truth or it's your truth. And like sometimes that changes.
And having a right to be able to speak your truth, I think it's extremely important. Of course, you don't want to hurt somebody else's feeling. Let's say somebody's obese, and you don't want to tell them, oh, you fatty, because you know that the person is going to feel like shit when you're going to say that. But at the same time, how else are you going to tell the person that, you're really overweight? Maybe you should start doing something with that. And I'm not saying this because I'm a rude bugger. I'm just saying this because I really genuinely care, that you're not going to have diabetes, that you're not going to end up with a heart attack, at the age of 45, and all of these things. And it feels to me like the world that we live in right now, it's limiting that. It's not allowing you to tell the truth. And very often these people live in these cocoons, and they're very, very soft cocoons, and they don't really see this to be a problem. Let's say their weight, it's not really an issue, because since nobody's really ostracizing them for that, no one is really talking about, that there's a problem and perhaps it should be addressed for the right reasons, for the health reasons. And this is just one example. These examples are countless. And my problem is that it's getting worse and worse, year by year. I think that once you set the precedent, that's just the beginning of an end. And my concern is, if it's that bad right now, what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, you're right. It could be a slippery slope. But for me, I like to help people, same as you.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason I've become a bit more blunt, is because my evaluation, and I'm not saying I'm correct, but my evaluation when I'm focused on helping people, and is that bluntness often helps people a lot.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm interested in being like that.
Yes, I completely
And so I don't want to
agree.
rob them from that opportunity.
But that's the problem is, once certain things are implemented in law, you have to be very, very careful, because even though you've got great intentions, all you want to do is help. It can be misinterpreted. So I guess that both you and me, I'm trying to be quite blunt with people as well. But I wouldn't be blunt right off the bat. I would need to get to know them first. They would have to get to know me. They would have to understand that what I'm saying is not because, I'm a rude person. It's because I genuinely try to help. And I think that's one of the most fundamental reasons for us to be able to speak freely our truth, in order to help other people to realize or to notice stuff that nobody else is talking about. So since nobody else is talking about the issue, you may as well think that the issue does not exist. But oftentimes, the issue is still there, but we're just not allowed to talk about it because we're trying to protect the feelings of that person.
And the danger of that for me is that people suffer. So I guess in my head, how I imagine it is, blunt people can be like tools for cutting off like cancers or bad aspects of people. They're like a mirror. They they function to show you something about yourself that maybe you might not have looked at. And that they can be really blunt sometimes, because the danger is that they can really hurt somebody with their bluntness. And like they can, that's a fact.
That's
but
true.
how do they get better at doing that? They get better by being blunt and maybe hurting some people, and then some people say, that hurt me or whatever, or society, like the people around about them says, kind of reflects to them a bit, and they begin to get sharpened potentially, and so they can utilize that bluntness for being an effective tool for helping people, like a scalpel. But if you do not allow them to ever refine and sharpen that bluntness, if you force them, then you destroy their ability, and you make everybody suffer. All of society suffers for that. And that's my concern with this non-freedom enforced kind of dictatorship rule of what people should do, policing, the PC thing.
Thought police. That's exactly what it is. And it's not a conspiracy theory. That's just reality. And I wish, like you said, that it wasn't the case. And one thing I wanted to go back to, when you've mentioned about, the foreign people that you've had some experience with, and I think there's a big part of it is a cultural difference. And Poland, the country where I grew up, was much tougher country than here in the UK, and the political correctness was not as present as it is here. So you could tell the person, the stuff that you thought, that came to your mind, without worrying that, they're going to go to the police and report you for that. And at the time, there was a time, there's a good story. Me and my wife, we went to Poland for holidays, and we went to the market to buy some clothing. So on two separate occasions, the same market, two ladies just told me, "Oh, you're chubby, Bubby." And basically it's like, over here, you take it as an insult, they hurt your feelings, it's not allowed to say, but over there, it was absolutely normal. They just told you what they seen. So you look chubby, so they told you were chubby. And it didn't feel that great at the time, because, I turned red and everything, embarrassment. But you need that. You need that feedback, because that's one of the reasons why I've actually changed, because people were able to tell me what I actually saw in the mirror already. And if there is something that you think that you should potentially fix, but nobody else is telling you there's an issue, you might as well think that maybe the problem's only in my mind. Maybe there's no problem at all. Maybe I should just get myself another 3 donuts. That would make me feel happy.